42 years old. I've worked for Urban Saints for 13 years. Married to Joe. We've been married 22 years this July. We have two boys, Andrew and Daniel. Andrew is 20 and in his final year at university studying ICT and design, and my younger son is 17. He's at Cambridge College studying games design. He's a bit of a games freak. And before I came to Urban Saints, my background is in IT and telecommunications, and so I worked there for just around 10 years at T-Mobile, and then came here in May 2000. And actually, in the last year, I juggle my role. About a third of my time now, I'm the senior pastor of Hitchin Christian Centre, which my dad handed the leadership over to me after he had led it for 31 years, just a year ago. And then the other 2/3 of my time are as chief exec of Urban Saints, and so that's me. When I joined, because obviously it was Crusaders at the time, and I was aware of Crusaders. I've been involved in youth ministry since I was 17 years old, and so I've been to conferences and seen Crusaders advertised, and I was aware of their holidays, but didn't really know the movement. And so I took about 6 months with the trustees and the team to really get my head around this organisation, what God was doing and where the life was. And we developed a little bit of a 5-year strategy, but I think the defining moment for me, which has shaped everything since, to be honest, was in November of 2000. I was praying in my office at the end of this process, and we had a 5-year strategy, and just asking God, where does the strategy that we believe is from you fit within a much bigger dream to see loads of kids come to faith. And the Lord reminded me of a passage of scripture in Judges 2 verse 10 that talks about a whole generation who grew up after Joshua had died, who don't know God and didn't know God and what God had done, and how that passage almost spoke prophetically over the generation of young people that we're reaching today, most of whom don't know God, most of whom only know Jesus as a swear word. But the challenge was, what I felt like God was saying to me is, Matt, if you think it's bad now, what will it be like in 20 or 30 years' time, unless we see a new generation of baton carriers and torch bearers, young people who are passionate about Jesus and will become the baton carriers to the future generations. And so God really started to speak to me and the leadership team and the trustees about the importance of thinking generationally. Which was very much the roots of Crusaders, this baton passing faith and young people coming all the way through and then becoming leaders and coming all the way through and becoming leaders. And we'd lost that, and the sense of God saying, you've got to get back to thinking generationally. And that God is the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. And Psalm 78 does say that we need to tell the good news to our children, who will tell it to their children, who will tell it to their children, even the ones not born yet. And so you just get this sense in Scripture of this baton-carrying generational God. And the effect of that practically is it totally reshaped the way we did ministry. And so we developed Energize, our resourcing package off the back of that, and Energize was rooted in the idea of providing a generation of resources so that we could say to a local church, as we can today, or a group, that we can help them journey with a 3-year-old for every week of every year of that child's life until they're 18, 19 years old. A whole generational curriculum of different stuff for outreach and discipleship. And then similarly we did the same thing with our experiences, where we looked at the special events and the holidays and all the things that we ran and thought, how does that sit within a generational framework? But when you're 7 years old, what's available to you? And then what next when you're 8 or when you're 10? And so I would say the defining moment was for me in that November evening about the importance of thinking generationally and recognising that we have this responsibility before God not to bring an age group but a whole generation into a living relationship with Jesus, and to help them and disciple them so that they can reproduce and pass the baton of faith on to future generations. And I would say that has been the single most defining thing that grips me in all of our mission activities. Are we thinking generationally? Are we thinking journey? And the baton pass of faith. Wow, that is a great question. When as I said, I used to work for T-Mobile, and when I worked for T-Mobile, I remember seeing this job advert for the chief exec post and thinking, wow, I think I would really like that. And what appealed to me about it was there were two elements to it. One, essentially, I was the youth and children's pastor as a volunteer in my local church at the time, and so my whole passion about seeing children and young people come to know Jesus and become his followers, tick. Wow, this would be amazing to do that and influence on a national scale. And then much of what I was doing in T-Mobile was about strategy and vision and building teams and seeing vision happen, which obviously was a huge part of the role as well. And so I looked at this and thought, this brings together the two things that get me up in the morning: vision, strategy, planning, people, but all for the cause of children and young people. And here I am 13 years later, and those are the things that I love about it. I feel incredibly privileged to be in this role, working with an amazing group of people who are like family. We laugh together, we cry together, we wrestle with the challenge of seeing a generation come to know Jesus. I get to hang out with youth leaders all over the country to encourage them and inspire them and cheer them on. I get to speak at youth events whilst continuing to be involved with young people locally as a volunteer in my own church. And I just feel massively blessed that this is what I get to do. The mission that we have with the people that I love, for the God that I love. It's awesome. Well, I think one of the things that we're grappling with at the moment is here we are 13 years on, and really still not seeing huge numbers of young people come to faith, and starting to think about how do we do that. And I think even more so, I'm more convicted about this important baton carrying thing than ever before. Hopefully some of you heard of the whole Live Life 1, 2, 3 value that we're trying to share with people, about encouraging people to think about having a leader, having one person in their life they're learning from, two that they're doing life with to learn and grow, and maybe 3 young people that they're discipling and helping them to reproduce. And I think things like Live Life 1, 2, 3 really could help. Simple ideas, and there are others out there that could help to see all over the UK and Ireland and other countries God just draw many young people to faith and bring their friends to Christ. And so we're in the early days of that, of praying that the wind of the Spirit would get behind that. And I would covet your prayers that people will really catch that. At the end of the day, it's not about the phrase or the strapline, it is about discipleship. So when I say catch that, I'm saying catch discipleship, life on life, seeing young people grow in their faith. And so we'd really covet your prayers that we get favour and that people do, and I would covet your actions, that you would jump in on that too and think about who is discipling me and who can I disciple, because at the end of the day we change the world one life at a time. And so pray and maybe give it a crack yourself. That would be fantastic. I'm really excited about what God is doing in Ireland. I know you would expect me to say that, but I genuinely am. The amount of new life, the number of groups, the sense of kingdom partnerships, things that are happening, some of the unity stuff that Wilson and the guys have been doing, is amazing, absolutely amazing. And I want to cheer it on. I just want to say, come on, I feel like you guys are in the first fruits of something. I feel like some of these things that you've been doing, some of these new things that are quite radical. Some would say controversial. I think awesome. Jesus is radical and he is controversial, and you can't put him in a box. And he does cross the lines, and he does connect with people that we might not connect with, and he is uncomfortable with some of the things he does. And so if we're called to be his followers, then that's what we've got to be doing. A friend of mine once said that if we're not living life on the edge as the church, then we're taking up too much room. And so I love the fact that I think Ireland is doing some edgy things as well as the kind of core things of what we're about. And I want to cheer it on. I want to say you are pioneering the way in that I think will bring influence and inspiration to the rest of the British Isles in kind of spearheading some of these things that need to happen, and that will encourage others in their own communities where there are different issues of prejudice and stuff which need to be tackled. And I'm just excited about that. And we know that God is doing a lot with kingdom partnerships, and seeing a lot of that happen in Ireland, which is great. We're really concerned right across the country with the whole issue of pornography and young people, and it was awesome to see that Ireland held 2 Porn Scars conferences which were the second and third Paul and Scarves conferences that have ever been held, and they were the biggest yet. They were far bigger than the one that happened in England, which was wonderful, and just a sense that God is doing some great things, and Ireland is leading the way in that stuff. And I just want to encourage that. I want to encourage a belief that you can lead and inspire others across the rest of the movement and the rest of the British Isles to grab a hold of the radical Jesus. And so appreciate that, but keep going.